Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android. We recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for all your South Florida sports content. It includes Messi and Company, 3 yards per carry, and more. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link is right here in the description. You can bypass the Apple upcharge. Make sure that you check it out. Again, it's $2.99 per month. You can cancel at any time. Get the host updates. That's the stuff straight from the arena, the behind-the-scenes stuff, the stuff that we don't tell you on Twitter. You can find it on Off the Floor. Also, all of our stage shows. Also, Prize Picks. Use the code 5 F5EE. Put down your $5. You get $50 in free lineups. We know that there are other codes that you can use. Delete the other one that you see there. Enter this one, or just use the link that is also in the description. Legal in the state of Florida, our official fantasy partner, prizepicks.com. And now, today's episode.
Uh-oh. Yeah. It's Mercy. Music by Mercy again. Heat Nation. We the culture. Yo, E, I need you to call timeout. Need Brady to set the floor plan. Tropical blanket. Open for the shot. Yo, Greg, set the pick. Still 5 on the floor, still ride for my dog. Still battle on the court, still survive in the war. Keep your eye on the ball, or get burned from the keep this mic off the wall without turning the cheek. From night to day, no sleepy paths or loud to morning. The nut is sleeping us, never catch us snoring. Live from Miami, report in the heat with 5 Reasons Sports from the court to the streets. Yeah, Wake County, Heat Nation, we say it proudly.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on Five Reasons Sports. I got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Pretty simple topic here. Where's the Nikola Jović we were promised? Or that I promised you? Nico, what are you doing, man? I've been pumping you up the entire offseason. So was Eric Spoelstra. Got the contract, which I think all of us were in favor of. 4 years, $62 million to $62.5 million. He's really had 1.5 games so far where I think we've seen what we were hoping to see. And Eric Spoelstra, after the game last night, kind of gave him the Ware treatment. I mean, which is interesting because Nico was who Ware was sort of unfavorably compared to in terms of professionalism and development and all that kind of stuff when Spo was talking over the summer. But yesterday, Ira was speaking about Jovic adjusting to the new offense, and Spoelstra basically said no excuses. And I'll get the entire quote here at some point. But Alex, what's happening here? Because I didn't expect him to have these. Look, I didn't expect consistency from him completely. He's still young. It is a new system. I do think a little bit of grace needs to be given for that. Tyler's still not out there, who's someone I do think Jovic plays really well off of. And, then he was going to start, or we thought he was going to start, but Spo never really expected him to start, was going to start Ware. Now neither of them are starting. Now he's paired with Ware, who he's had a good connection with before, but the overall production, with the exception of that one game where he was allowed to play through the 6 turnovers and he ended up with a crazy stat line, he's not been as impactful as Jaquez, who was not great in this last game. We'll talk about that too. He's not been as impactful as Larson. He's not been as impactful as Fontecchio in terms of Fontecchio's role, right? So, or Drew, or Davion. What's happening here?
Honestly, I do agree with some of the stuff you said as far as having to give him some grace because he is still really young, even though he's already signed his rookie scale extension and it feels like he's been here so long at this point. Really, he's still a really young player. And I think the inconsistency stuff is to be expected when, there's a lot of changes to the offense. But I think more than that is the big difference between what we thought, right, was going to be Nico's role. It's really, that's Jaime's role, right? Like they kind of flip-flop there. Jaime is the guy who has the ball in his hands the most in these bench lineups, and these bench lineups have been a huge part of why the Heat have been so surprising to start the season. Like, they've been insanely effective, right? That wasn't necessarily the case last night, but throughout the season, those bench lineups have been huge, and Jaime has been the biggest part of that on offense, right? Like you said, the other guys are playing their role well. I think Nico is finding himself having to kind of play in this weird in-between role where he's not necessarily touching the ball that much. It feels I really like that they have him as like a grab and go type of guy, because I think that part of his game is just an awesome fit into what they're doing. And I think, that doesn't show up on the stat sheets, but a lot of times he's making the right decisions off those grab and goes, whether it's like in fast break or an early transition to get into their offense earlier. I think that part of it is great. I think he's had some flashes where you can see the playmaking a little bit more when he gets like a mismatch in the post, and then can feed it to the right player from there. But other than that, like I feel like the touches for him have been a little bit inconsistent. I don't think it's the system's fault. I think the system, you know, is something that plays into what he does well, right? But when you look at just who has the ball in their hands more, I think Jaime has taken a lot of the touches, and it rightfully so. Like he's been awesome getting into the paint and spraying out, and that's been the main thing. And he's just flat out more capable of doing that than Nico is. Nico is not the the automatic paint touch, and he's definitely not the finisher that Jaime is. Now he's capable of that, but Jaime coming off the catch when he has that burst, like he pretty much gets into the paint at will. And I think Nico is sort of like he's this connector guy who brings the ball up in transition and gets maybe a post touch per game. So it feels like his role has kind of dwindled a little bit, right? Especially because we thought that he would have an increase in the role this year. Now, I don't think either of us were expecting them to run the offense through him, or he's the point guard now. I don't really think that's what it was, but we expected more touches, and I don't think that's been the case so far. And then the other thing is the threes are not falling right now, so it kind of makes things feel worse because it's like the shots that he is getting up from the perimeter. He's shooting, what is it, 31% right now from three. So that'll come up. I think that'll make people feel a little bit better. But to me, the big story here with Nico is not the system, but the role.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of things there, because we talk about role, and we talked about this so much with him, and I think Spo's tired of hearing about it because that's got brought up the last couple of years. He's getting minutes. The minutes are not the problem. He did close the game when he had 29 points with the 6 turnovers. I've wondered whether Spo's going to close with him much because of the fear of mistakes and turnovers, and especially with the glut of players they have to close. We've talked about this, and obviously they didn't close anything because it all fell apart in this last game. But Powell, Hero, Bam, and then are definitely going to close. And then you've basically got Wiggins, Jaquez, and Davion as primary options to close. Well, that's 6. That's before you get to Jovic, Ware, or Larson. Those are 9 options to close. I mean, they want to give Spo as many options as possible. That's the whole idea. Give him 7. He's got more than that. And 2 of the players on that list are confidence players, Ware and Jovic, where he's playing these push-pull games with them to try to get the most out of each of them. And they're different. Ware doesn't have a confidence problem. He has a focus problem. Jovic has a confidence problem. And I mean, he's very honest. That's one of the things we like about him. But Spo doesn't want to hear about the confidence stuff anymore. But how much do you attribute some of the struggles finding a fit with confidence? Right? Because
I mean,
it seems like the game that Spo let him play, he played through it, and he was a house on fire in that last quarter, right? But the other games, it seems like he drifts and gets frustrated, and then he's admitted that he didn't feel he contributed the first 2 weeks of the season.
For sure, I do think that's definitely playing a role into why the effectiveness has just not really been there for Nico game to game. Like you said, it's really just been a game and a half or so where he's looked really good. Other than that, like even up and down doesn't necessarily feel like the best way to assess it, because other than that, it's been a lot of downs. Like, I'm not saying he's a negative player. It's not like he's really hurting them out there, but he's not doing, like he's not necessarily doing everything at the rate that we would expect him to, the level we would expect him to. Like I really do think the passing chops are still there, and that's where you can really see his confidence go up, and is when he's passing the ball, right? I think, or not go up, but that's where it is, right? I think the confidence,
passing and
yes,
pushing, the pushing and the
yes,
break.
100%. The
When
grab
things
and go
slow
stuff.
when things slow down, though, that's what's been problematic, honestly.
Exactly. He's not necessarily a great half court player. Like I think he's still somebody who can be helpful for them in the half court, but that's not his best thing. Like when he's not playmaking out there, the scoring part of his game is where the confidence really affects him for sure. I think like the finishing, he's a capable finisher, but sometimes I feel like, and look, Brady has said this before. He's talked about this with me at the games, where like, sometimes if he doesn't see those first couple shots go down, like it's just not going to be a great game for him, right? I don't necessarily know if that's always going to be the case, but look, he's a human being, right? Like we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and of course, like a couple shots don't go in, that might affect the rest of your game. And he's not somebody who, like you brought up the Ware comparison, where for the most part, like even with everything that's been said about him on offense, right? Like the ball is going to him when he is right under the hoop or when he's right over the hoop, right? In that case, catching lobs, but he's not necessarily having to create for himself. So I think it's a little bit of a different thing with Nico, where it's, his game is about creation. A lot of it in transition, but in the half court, I feel like when things slow down for him, like you said, he's not getting the most out of his game. And again, going back to the Ware comparison, it's funny that, you brought up like kind of what Spo is doing with them. It feels like Nico is like he's like, okay, I got to bring Nico up in this way. I got to make sure that I give him some criticism and feedback when he doesn't play well, because if not, maybe it like discredits some of the stuff that they're saying to Ware when they talk about the stuff that he's not doing well. It's almost like like siblings, right? It's like you're trying to make sure it's balanced out, so one of them doesn't feel like, there's like some sort of favoritism or something. So yeah, like and it's 100% fair, by the way. Like it's not like some game. Like they've both had their flaws, and they've both been kind of the guys who've been most up and down in this rotation compared to everybody else, and they're the youngest guy. So it feels like it makes a lot of sense for Spo to take that approach.
Well, we talked about that when he made his comments. We talked about when he made his comments in the summer, that, and one of the episodes I did with Mateo and Sean was that it can't just be Ware. If it's going to be just Ware, then Ware's going to take all this stuff personally. So I do think there's a little bit of a method to the madness here by trying to treat Nico somewhat the same way that he's treated Ware, even if the primary issues with Nico are different. I don't think Nico drifts like that. We don't talk about that. Like it's not a lack of. Sometimes with Ware, it looks like a lack of trying, and then it really sticks out when Ware tries, because you're like, wait a second, look at this guy. Okay, now we see what they see, and he's doing all little things. Nico's trying all the time, but sometimes he's either trying to do too much or he's scared to do something. It seems like it's one or the other, and I still see the potential there. I think we all do. It's just it's been interesting to me because I did think this offense would fit him. So the context of the offense not working for him is interesting. And on the other side of this, quickly, I want to get into what this means when Tyler comes back, because I do think that changes the equation. It could be a good thing for him, but it also could take away additional touches. So we'll get into that on the other side. Before we do, want to mention our friends over at Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's Javier and Amanda. And they've got open houses going on all over South Florida. We know that the housing market is a little weird, a little wonky, a little slow right now. Well, they'll walk you through the entire process. If you're looking to sell your house, they'll do your open house for you. They're based here in Broward County. They're all over Broward, though, all the way from my area in Fort Lauderdale, all the way west, Pines, Miramar, Plantation, Davie, all those spots. Reach out to them at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram or at realestateshopfl.com. Again, that's Real Estate Shop, 2 P's and an E, FL.com. So as we're podcasting here, Tyler and Bam are traveling to New York today. I've said I wouldn't read into that too much. Tyler's not going to play Friday in New York. Brunson, by the way, likely not going to play. He left in a walking boot. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily help the Heat, because we know that the Heat don't play well against teams that don't have their stars. Look what just happened against Cleveland. I don't know if Bam will play or not. I've cautioned everyone that New York is a different kind of trip. It's a one-game trip. You'd say, well, why would they travel on a one-game trip? Why wouldn't they both just get treatment back here in Miami? But that's a trip that is particularly high-profile players, of which Bam and Tyler are the two most high-profile players on the Heat at the moment. They plan for that trip because sponsor stuff is set up for them, all kinds of other things because it's New York. I remember Dwayne being hurt at least 2 years and still traveled to New York because he literally had a Dwayne Wade conference up there with all of his
Wasn't
sponsors.
there something with Jimmy last year too, when he was
Yeah.
like in the middle of that whole
Yes.
thing? Like he went to New York and there was like a sponsor thing going on with the
Yeah.
coffee.
The coffee was up exactly, and then there was another one down here. What, of course, we don't talk about this, but yeah, there was another one that came that he had down here, which was related to what was it, pickleball or something along those lines. And he was in one place, he was supposed to be another. But the team knows about these things. But it's like you take the trip to New York, basically, particularly if you're a high profile guy. And I'm sure we see Tyler is now in a new commercial, and Bam has his own promotional stuff as well. So I would not read into it with Tyler at all. Okay, with Bam. As of the moment, it's 2:00 on Thursday. He hasn't been ruled out. They haven't released that report yet, so we'll see. He did get some work yesterday, as you guys saw in practice. Well, pregame he did. He did some work too, and he's not in the walking boot. He's moving okay from what it looks like, but I don't know that he's ready to play yet. So we'll see. But let's just close with this on the Jovic thing. So you mentioned that Hawkes has taken some of Jovic's touches. We think Hero is going to take some of Hawkes' touches, right?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, just naturally.
initiation touches. Right. Okay. So, but I also think that Nikos has a good chemistry with Tyler from when they've gotten the opportunities to play together. And I can see Tyler anchoring some of those bench units actually, or Norm, one or the other. Although Brady thinks it's going to be more Tyler. I think he thinks Norm's going to be tied to Wiggins in a lot of ways. But how do you view it? Like, how do you view Tyler coming back in terms of how it affects Jovic?
It's a great question. And I'm 100% not sure when it comes to how they're going to treat their rotations when Tyler's back. Not only the starting lineups, but like who, again, going back to what I was talking about earlier, these bench lineups have been so important for them. And I don't know how much they want to mess with what's been going well. Now, of course, that might not last all season long. Teams might get used to like what the Heat are doing. And look, like we're already seeing some adjustments, right? Like the Cavs threw out a whole lot of size on them last night. And, that's not the only reason the Heat turned the ball over and, didn't get to the free throw line like they did, the time before. But it's a part of it. I think teams are starting to realize what the Heat are doing. And the fact that they've gotten so many more shots at the rim this year because of the pace they're playing at. It's different than in years past where the Heat were constantly in the bottom 3 or bottom 5 in shots taken at the rim. I think there's there's going to be some scouting and some adjustments made. And so who knows? Maybe there are changes made to the bench lineup and stuff like that when Tyler's back. It's a little bit hard to project at the moment. But as far as Tyler and Nico together, I don't really see it affecting him too much. Honestly, I don't think Nico is somebody who is gonna, like have a high use, like a super high usage role this year, anyways. And like you said, they kind of play well together as it stands. And it also, like what I'm looking forward to seeing is how they use Tyler when he's back, because I'm expecting a lot of the stuff that they're doing with Norm, right? Where it's not like they're giving the ball to Norm at the top of the key and having him do what Jaime or Davion does out there, where it's one-on-one, get to the rim. That's not necessarily what they're doing with Norm, but Norm has been getting to the rim, coming off the catch, either on a curl or off a pin down. And I think we're going to see a lot of that with Tyler, where he's coming, he's getting the ball coming off the catch, and I think he's going to go from there. And it's either, and from there, it's make the read of shoot the ball or get downhill, which a lot of times teams are going to take away the three from Tyler. Same thing with Norm. So I think we're going to see that type of role. And if that's the case, I think that is like good for Jaime, good for Davion, guys who have like really showed what they can do getting to the basket. And I don't really think it hurts Nico. Like it gives Nico another guy who he can pass the ball to, who is an elite shooter. Gives him more space out there on the floor to work with. On top of like, the way that they're running their offense, where the spacing has been better this season. I don't really think Tyler coming in is going to hurt Nico at all. I'm really more interested to see what that does for Jaime, and specifically like what units are they running out there. I'm still optimistic about it, but I'm almost unsure where exactly they're going to go from here and how they handle it.
I'll just close with this. I think that we may get to some of the numbers that we projected for Jovic, but I don't think it's going to be through consistency. I think that's what we're seeing so far. I think there may be pockets of games in the season where he puts up a lot of numbers, where he is featured in more of a way. And then there's going to be games like we've seen so far that you're like, well, he's not really giving you a lot. I'm not really getting into all the defensive metrics and all that stuff. So from what I've seen, he's held up pretty well in a lot of that stuff. I think with him, we tend to focus on offense, and it's like, okay, can he be at par on defense, right? Are you comfortable with him out in space? But the one thing that does need to get consistently better is the rebounding, and that's not just him; it's everybody. They have given up second most offensive rebounds in the league right now. And I know Coop had a stat the other day, and I just did a story on this for SI, where when Bam plays, this is prior to the last game, but their defensive rebound percentage is third in the league, and when he doesn't, it's 30th. So
I have another stat
obviously
for you
he has a lot. Go ahead. Okay, well, go ahead. Give me that one.
I got you. So essentially, like before that Nuggets game, the Heat were 8th in defensive rebound percentage. Ever since then, they're in the bottom 3. And by the way, some like Nico is not a good rebounder. He wasn't at the 4. He's definitely not going to be at the 5. But the other thing that has to happen with Nico is some progression to the mean, man. Like I mentioned the 31% shooting. That should get better. Like that is unacceptable. He can't be a 31% 3-point shooter. And the other thing, like I mentioned, the up and down finishing, like it's just not, the sub 60% finishing right at the rim is not good enough for him. It's a below average level right now. So like just that stuff has to come up. Or if this like sustains all season, like again, for as much as I like Nico and how helpful he can be as a player, all of a sudden that contract starts to look a little bit iffy, because like I remember even when we were having these discussions before the season, as far as like, well, like when should you extend Norm? When should you extend Nico? I remember saying like I felt like they should have waited till maybe like after the season, or I don't know. Like there's no easy answer for these things, but they made that decision ahead of time. And now here we are. We've got it to this point where maybe his role is a little bit inconsistent. Tyler's going to come back. Bam's going to come back. Maybe the ball's going to be in his hands even less. He's going to have to find a way to make the most out of these minutes that he's going to get, because the minutes will be there. Like maybe it's not 28 minutes per game when everybody's back, but he's going to have a role. And I get it. Like it might be a little bit uncomfortable for him, but what he's done so far offensively is just not up to par.
Well, they made the decision to extend him based on what they were seeing behind the scenes all summer and in training camp, but at some point it has to manifest on the court. It does. And once the contract is signed, he's not getting paid that yet. Okay. So just to be clear on it, but once the contract is signed, the expectations change. And he's going to get the minutes in part because even if he struggles, they don't have a lot of other options with size. They just don't. Even if his size is not traditional, they don't have anybody else to go to. So he's going to get chances. Like he can be outplayed by Pelle Larsson, but Nico's minutes are more secure because there are so many guards and wing types on this roster. So he's going to get chances to play through it. But again, he's got to make the most of it. The rebounding, the 3-point shooting obviously needs to come up. And I'm okay with the turnovers more so than most are. As if he's playing aggressively and he's making an impact, you live with a couple of them. But the other stuff needs to get better. All right, that's where we are today. We'll have coverage of Knicks Heat Friday night in New York. Also, of course, they're back here. The Knicks will play Monday. Again, not expecting Tyler. Maybe Bam. We'll see for one of these two games. Maybe. He doesn't seem that far away. And Brunson, we'll get a report on that, but that didn't look good coming out of their loss against Orlando. Have a good one, everybody.